welcome to another episode of the Trade Australia 2024 Consul Series. Now, I've got the absolute pleasure to be joined by Hélène Larochelle, who's an Oceania representative for Invest Québec. Hélène, great to meet you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Now, I know you're not a consulate, but part of the series is to really showcase some of the trade, investment, and cultural opportunities. So, when we met and talked about Quebec, I really wanted to invite you as part of the series. So tell us about your background with international trade, global business, and your role at Invest Québec.
Yeah, thank you. So my background is, I've been working in Asia Pacific for the last 15 years. After studying in Japan, I worked for private corporation, large Japanese corporation in international business development. Later on, I moved into a role in China with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. So I worked in different roles in Asia for the private sector and the non-for-profit, but there was always an aspect of import and export. So I've been exposed to trade for a long time. And when I moved in Australia in 2019, I joined Invest Québec. And we've been having a representation here since 2021. Yeah. And it's very exciting to be able to help Quebec company enter the Australian market and expand their market here.
Wonderful. Now, Australia traditionally has sort of gone after and focused on some of the bigger markets and more common markets. So it's great to have diversity now. And I think especially after the pandemic, so many Australian businesses are looking to diversify supply chains and investment opportunities. Tell us about some of the areas of opportunities that you believe for between Quebec and Australia.
Absolutely. And I think the same was true for Quebec as well. For a long time, we thought as a small province, Australia is very far. It's a relatively small market population. So we were not sure if the company were having an appetite to come and do business in Australia. But what we find out is that there is, because for exactly the reason that you said, company want to diversify the market. And what we maybe lose in proximity geographically with Australia, we find that culturally is very similar. Yeah. So the ease of doing business is a big plus for our company as well. And it's a mature market, so there is place for the solution and the technology that Quebec company has to offer. And in terms of attraction of investment into Quebec, in the last few years, especially around the mining sector, there's been an explosion of investment and the whole battery production. So we are extremely excited about that.
Great. Well, that plays to Australia's strengths with some of those mining sectors and subsectors that go along with that as well. So, Hélène, tell us about some of the programs and initiatives you've got coming up for 2024.
Yeah, so our approach at Invest Québec is really to work on an individual base with the companies, trying to have a very personal approach. But we do have some group and larger initiative. So we are excited this year to have, for the third year, business delegation around mining. Correct. For the IMARC trade show in October. And we had the 15 companies joining last year. We're expecting a similar number again this year, and a little roadshow with them to come into Melbourne, visit Perth, and some of the potential local partner here in Australia. Later in the first quarter of next year, we will also have a delegation in aerospace and defense for Avalon in Melbourne. Yep. And again, same thing, we're going to bring the delegation in other state of the country and meet with key stakeholder. But between those two business delegation, we also try to bring Australian major stakeholder into Montreal for meeting our company and having an exposure to our ecosystem and around the creative industry specifically. We have a number of key player in Australia who will be visiting Canada later this year.
Great. And you mentioned before, Hélène, I think the cultural similarities and even demographic type similarities between Australia and Canada overall are really great. And I think the ease of doing business and the ease of actually building relationships and communications it was only being held back by, I think, by an awareness. So, with your role now here in Melbourne and Australia across the board, it'd be great to increase that awareness around those type of things for Australian companies who are looking to diversify.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of my personal mandate to be explaining and promoting the opportunity to Quebec companies, and vice versa, promoting Quebec as a place to invest and do business for Australian companies. And I think we can see when company travel here, they find it's a very long journey, but when they arrive, they feel they're just back home. We're very excited about the relationship between Australia and Quebec. And we saw also, since COVID has been very difficult in terms of the whole supply chain, but now we see that the export from Quebec are really picking up and at a stronger level than it was pre-COVID, so we were very excited.
Great. And you mentioned, it is a long way to come. So your role, does it incorporate New Zealand as well?
Yes, absolutely. So New Zealand and the other smaller island around Australia, and we, even though Australia is a big country, it's our main focus, but we do have a number of opportunity for our companies in New Zealand and also in New Caledonia, for example. Yeah,
great. Well, one of the final questions I ask all of our guests as part of this series, Helen, is how would you, if you like, pitch Quebec to our Australian audience and to the viewers, watching there, whether it's business, cultural, tourism? How would you sort of package up the best of Quebec to our audience?
It's a tough one. We're very unique, even in North America as a French speaking country, province, but we feel sometimes like a different country. We have a number of patent registered per capita that is extraordinary, and for a small province with a population of 7 to 8 million, I'm not exactly sure now, but we're home of some of the largest Canadian companies, including Bombardier in the aerospace, Cirque du Soleil in the creative industry. So we're very an important player of the trade between Canada and Australia, and for a small province, we also represent more than a quarter of the total export of Canada. So it's definitely a place to see. When Americans visit Quebec, they often say they feel that they are in Europe, and when Europeans come to Quebec, they feel that it's something very unique of North America. So I guess we really represent the bridge between the two, the European and North American culture.
Great, a powerful hub for both markets.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Helen. It's been wonderful to have you as part of the show, and congratulations on all the work you do, and looking forward to seeing more and more of that over 2024 and beyond, and hopefully being part of that with you as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Helen.